welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having a good day. Thank you for checking out the channel. Like always, smash that thumbs up button. Today we're going to go over a awesome, very informative, very detailed, pretty much a diesel vlog on talking about turbos and injectors. Okay, I get tons of messages from you guys in terms of questions on like, hey man, my stock turbo just took a dump. I'm ready to upgrade. I'm ready to do something else. What should I do? This by far top 3 questions I get asked, and that's one of them. Hopefully this video can bring you guys some insight in terms of picking the right turbo, knowing how and understanding how turbos work, and knowing that it's not just, oh, I need a new turbo, what size should I get? Okay, it doesn't work like that. But the good thing is, in today's video, I'm going to explain all of that. Hopefully it'll bring some understanding to yourselves or to you guys, and you might learn something out of this. So once again, if you enjoyed this video, please smash the thumbs up button, and then also feel free to subscribe, because we're a family here, and I love when I get new subscribers. I love your guys' comments, feedback, engagement. All of that stuff is really good, so thank you guys so much. Okay, you guys, so I figured the first thing we'll start talking about is turbos, all right? So what to do when you're choosing a turbo. So right off the bat, this turbo right here I have is a brand new Smedin Diesel S472 turbo with a 1.0 AR 87 millimeter turbine housing. Okay, so when you're looking at a turbo, different sections. So you have really some, you could say 2 or 3, it depends. Some people like to classify it. You have your compressor housing, turbine housing, or also known as exhaust housing. Okay, and you also have your manifold point. Okay, now you guys see the term T2, T3, T4, 5, and 6, and if there's any more. Okay, the T portion is telling you the turbine housing size. Okay, so this is a T4 housing. Okay, so for my 6.7 Cummins, and I can really only talk about the Cummins people because that's what I drive. I do know that Duramaxes and Power Strokes, I believe, use a T3 housing stock. If I'm wrong, correct me, comment down below by all means. But anyways, the T means your housing size. So my housing here is a T4. This will work on a second gen swap setup, or a second gen swap setup for a 6.7. Okay, stock second gens come with a T3 housing, which is a little smaller. Okay, so that usually means your inducer is going to be smaller. All right, so how does a turbo work essentially? So you have your compressor housing, and a lot of people have this backwards. You have your compressor housing and your turbine housing. What happens is, if you look up here, we have a compressor wheel here. Everybody usually says, oh, the compressor section sucks in the air, it goes through the intercooler into the engine. It does do that, but the turbo won't even spin if it doesn't have any exhaust gases, okay, or drive pressure. So what happens is the pressure coming out of the exhaust, or out, well, yeah, we'll say exhaust, okay. So the pressure coming out of the engine block from the cylinders, right, is going to come in here. When the gases come in here, eventually it's going to exit out this way, which is your turbine housing, or also known as your exhaust housing. Okay, when it does that, what it's doing is, sorry if the camera's sideways, actually, let's see if I can rotate it. And what it's doing is it's spinning that wheel. Let me see if I can get in there. That turbine wheel there, okay? That's your turbine wheel. It's spinning that exhaust wheel, okay? When it spins that wheel, it also spins the front side. So what happens is, when the front side spins, it can suck air in, more air. That is how you're getting what's the common term boost, because what's happening is it's taking the exhaust gases and essentially creating another suction avenue for the suction to come into the turbo, and then it will work its way, through the compressor housing, and it'll go into your intercooler and then into your cylinder chambers. Okay, so that's pretty much what's going on with a turbo. It's sucking in more air than what the engine normally sucks in by doing what I just explained. All right, so now, understanding your housings, okay? So, or we already talked about housings, but understanding your sizes, okay? So when I say I have a S472, the 4 is representing your housing size, okay? So T4, okay? 4, and then 72 is going to be your compressor wheel size, okay? So this right here is a 72 millimeter. So if I was to get a inside-outside or a clamp micrometer, and I was to put that against the wheel, from the top fin, from one side of the fin to the other side of the fin, it should be 72 millimeters on the money, okay? A little random spider, daddy long leg, I'm sorry. So it should be 72 millimeters. So S472 is telling me that this is a 72 millimeter turbo. Okay, now people are like, oh man, that's freaking ginormous. That's so much power. Yes and no. Okay, this is gonna I'm about to blow y'all minds. All right, so 72 millimeters. So what's happening is the bigger the compressor housing or the compressor wheel, the more air it's going to that's going to flow into your engine naturally. Okay, now what is a downside of having a big compressor wheel? It's usually going to be your low end spool up is not going to be as quick. Okay, I'm not saying it's not going to have low end spool up, but it's not going to be as quick and as efficient compared to a smaller wheel, because due to the not just geometries and physics, because this wheel is bigger and larger, it weighs more, which means it's going to require more force, meaning suction or air, to get that wheel to spin as fast as it would versus a smaller size wheel. Okay, so what's happening is air is going to get pushed in here, and then it's going to go through here, go to your intercooler. Okay, backside. So people don't really talk about this side really, but on the back side we have an 87 millimeter turbine back here. So that turbine, just like how I explained the front side, this back side is going to be a 87 millimeter turbine. Okay, now for the back side, you usually, for the 6.7 dudes, we usually rock a 83 mil or 87. I believe you might be able to get bigger, like a 90. I'm not sure, but don't quote me on that. Okay, so what happens there? So this is going to be your top end. This is going to be kind of like, I guess you can say your low end spool up, but it's not really. Okay, so 72, 87. Okay, so commonly what you will see is somebody say, oh, I got a 67, 63 turbo. What that means is I have a 67 millimeter compressor housing with a 87 millimeter turbine housing. Okay, that's all that's saying. Now, where do these numbers play in? Okay, keep this in mind. Golden rule of thumb: the larger your compressor wheel, I don't want to say slower, but it is a little bit slower. The longer it will take for your compressor or your turbo to spool up. Okay, so where does this come into knowing and understanding your turbos and how to pick turbos? Because once again, based off your needs and your goals, powers, what you're trying to do, you need to understand how to choose your turbo and what turbo you need to do. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, an HE351, which is a stock turbo on a 6.7 Cummins, up until 2020, I believe. That turbo, for my year, I looked it up. I believe it had a 58 or a 59 millimeter compressor housing. If I'm wrong, someone comment down below, please tell me. But 58 millimeter compressor housing, which means it's made to spool up quick at low ends, which is exactly what a stock turbo on the 6.7 is designed for. Because you gotta remember, you guys, these trucks, when they're made from factory, are designed for towing, hauling heavy stuff, highway driving, long trips. Okay, so no, they don't really care about top end power, because once you're on the highway and you set cruise control, I mean, that's it really. So from a stock housing setup or a stock turbo setup, it's not going to be crazy power top end. Okay, usually you get that quick spool up. So if you're thinking about doing a second gen swap setup, where would you go at if, let's say, you want to maintain stock characteristics, spool up characteristics with a little bit more airflow? You would probably want to be in that 463/464 category for your compressor housing. Okay, for your turbine housing, you're probably going to want to stick to that 83 millimeter turbine housing. Okay, so your turbine housing will also play a role in terms of how fast your turbo will light up. Okay, when I say light up, I mean how fast it's gonna spool up and put some air through your engine. Okay, if you stick with an 83 millimeter housing, which by means is nothing wrong with that, that's 100% awesome. You're going to experience very similar to stock spool ups, except with more airflow, more power coming through the engine. Okay, if you go to 87, it will take a little bit longer. When I say a little, we're talking seconds. Like, it's not like a 1 minute evolution. We're talking minute seconds. Okay, it will take a little longer for it to light up at the same RPM and the same power band curve and speed and all that, compared to a 83 millimeter housing. All right, so hopefully you guys are still with me. All right, so from there, T4, T3, that really doesn't have much to do when it comes to a turbo, except for your mounting application. Okay, you cannot mount a T4 turbo to a T3 manifold and vice versa. Okay, so if you got a T3 manifold, you need a T3 housing for your turbo. My 5.9 bubbles, if I'm correct, y'all have a T3 housing. Okay, which means that's usually why when you see 5.9 Cummins, they have a S369 or S366. They have some 300 frame size turbo because that's what it's set up for. All right, right off the bat for a 6.7, and I haven't hit this yet. AR is area to ratio. Okay, I'm not going to go into the depth with that because I can't even explain it to the T. But your AR essentially is the sizing. It's the area to ratio of your frame housing. Okay, long story short, bigger AR usually means more air. It's going to push, but once again with the sacrifice of a slightly slower spool up, initial spool up, okay? But it's going to push and flow more air. So this is a 1.0 AR. That's all I'm gonna say. You can get a, I believe it's what, 0.87 or 0.9 AR, 1.0 AR, or a 1.10 AR. Usually your 1.10 AR cats are your cats on the drag strips that are pushing some massive boost. They're on the track, you know, trying to win that gold. You know what I'm saying? So we'll leave that as that, okay? Hopefully this helped explain the ideology behind this, because now what we're going to talk about is injectors in terms of how to pair with your turbo. Okay, so now what we're going to talk about is injectors with turbos, okay? Because the thing is I get people ask me all the time, like, oh, what turbo should I go with? And I'm like, do you plan on stock injectors, big injectors? What are you trying to do, okay? You have to understand when you're picking a turbo, you need to understand there is a fuel side to that, okay? You can push all the air you want into your engine, but if you don't have enough fuel in your combustion chamber, so your cylinder walls, if you don't have enough fuel in there, it's going to be off, okay? Meaning it's probably going to be laggy, all right? Usually fuel will help quicken up that spool up and light off in the combustion process in the engine bay, all right? Or inside the engine internally. So I'll give you guys an example. So let's say you have a 6.7 Cummins. You're not trying to make crazy horsepower. You want something a little spunky. You want to keep stock injectors, okay? What I'm going to recommend, or what I would suggest in my opinion, would be for you a S464, okay? Or if you're going to stay with the third gen style turbo setup and you want to keep that third gen style manifold and stuff, I might say go with like a S366 or S364, okay? Spool's perfect on stock fuel. You can keep stock fuel, you know, get a tune update. It'll make it even more efficient, all right? When you start creeping into the 67 millimeter compressor housings size turbo, so like for example on my third gen, I have the S467. You can run that turbo on stock fuel. It will drive fine. You can tow with it. You can run a S367 or 467, sorry, turbo on stock fuel, but it will be a little bit laggier at, you know, 0 to 25, 35 miles per hour, depending on, you know, how your truck's set up and all that stuff, suspension, wheels, and all that stuff. Once you start creeping into the 367-ish, maybe 366-ish, that's when you might want to start considering adding some fuel to that engine to help get that turbo to run at its most efficient point. So for S367, anywhere from, we'll say 100 horsepower over injectors to 150 horsepower injectors is like muy bueno when it comes to the S467 turbo, okay? 100 is going to be on that low side. 150 is the high side. You probably got a street truck set up where you're doing a lot of, you know, hard pulls and you're driving, okay? So with that, keep that in mind. But rule of thumb, if you stay below the 65 millimeter compressor side of the housing, if you stay below that, most likely you'll be good with stock fuel. But you also have to keep in mind, once again, the AR and your turbine housing, because if you have the 87 millimeter turbine housing, it is going to be a bigger turbine wheel, which means it's going to require more air to spin it versus the 83 millimeter turbine wheel on the backside. So just keep that in mind, okay? Long story short, the bigger the wheel, the more air is going to be required to spin it. But on the flip side, you will be pushing more air into your engine, which means more power, more boost, more PSI, okay? So I can tell you right now, on my 467, I can hit 50 PSI right now on stock injectors. I'm in the process of getting injectors for 100% injectors. But right now, 50 psi is what I hit on my stock turbo. I think I was hitting like 38, 40, 42 on my stock turbo. It's a big difference. It's a big difference, especially once you're in that like 40 miles per hour range on a S4 or S467. All these numbers. It's a big, you can you can feel it. I've had the S464 on my truck. I've had the S467 on my truck. People ask me, what do I like more? I like the S467 more because it's that middleman between stock fuel with an S466, but if you add some fuel to it, it can be like a spunky, almost street truck. You can have a lot of fun with the 467, and you can still tow with it. You can do stuff with it. I've towed my John boat. Granted, it weighs probably like 500 pounds with everything on it, but you can still work with an S467. If you're into a lot of towing, you need to stay at the highest you need to go is the S466 or 464 and below. I know a lot of y'all ask me that all the time. I tow a lot. I tell them right off the bat, 464, perfect stock spool up characteristics. You can tow with it. It does its job, so it would definitely get the job done. And if you're trying to stay with the S300 style turbos, stock, third gen style turbo setup, and you tow a lot, I would, S360, 364, depending on who you go with. But yeah, so I'm trying to make sure I didn't miss anything else. Shit, I'm hearing stuff. Trying to make sure I didn't miss anything else when it comes to that. Also, oh, there we go, power bands. Okay, so I can only talk for Smedin diesel and MDC diesel when it comes to power bands. So your S467 is going to be rated up to 800 horsepower. If you get the S467 SXE, which is the updated compressor housing style, it gets an extra 50 horsepower, so 850. And that's why I say S467 is such a all-around awesome turbo, because if you want to make it that mean, nasty turbo, but you still want to drive it daily, you can do it. If you want to keep it mild and a little spunky, you can do it. Okay, S464 is going to be good, I believe, up to 650, 600 horsepower. Don't quote me on that, but around that range. Once again, S464 is a very common turbo. A lot of cats will do with a second gen swap because you don't have to upgrade fuel. You can run stock fuel on it. It spools up quick. It pushes and flows really good air. If you're not trying to get into upgrading your fuel components, I highly recommend getting a S464. Okay. One thing I did forget to mention, which I'm glad I just remembered, wheels. Okay. So two types of wheels: cast wheel, billet wheel. What's the difference? A cast wheel is made out of a cast, so it's molded. A billet wheel is carved. Okay. What's the difference? Lighter. Your billet wheel, aluminum, is going to be a lighter wheel, which helps with a little bit quicker spool up. Not a whole lot, but it does help with spool up. Also, some companies like MDC Diesel might offer a thrust bearing upgrade on there. What that is the thrust bearing inside of the turbo. If you upgrade that, it's going to make it more durable if you're going to be running that turbo at its higher rated horsepower. So for instance, my S467 is good up to 800 horsepower. If I'm running a 790 horsepower application, or if, let's say I'm pushing 800 horsepower, I would want that thrust bearing because it's going to be stronger and it's going to be more solidified to where it's not going to cause the turbo to self-destruct and go out. Okay, but that's all I really have right now, you guys. Now keep in mind, I should have said this at the beginning of the video, I'm not a mechanic, or I am a mechanic in a way, but I'm not a diesel tech. I'm not certified. I'm a regular dude that's done a lot of research, picked a lot of brains, and I finally understand what's going on. I know a lot of you guys always have the question about turbos. Hopefully this video explained it. I know it's a long video, but if you stuck it out to the end, hopefully you gained some knowledge from it. Follow the Instagram, everything_diesel, because if you got questions, you can message me on there and etc. But hopefully the video helped you guys out. I really hope it did. If you have any questions, by all means, drop it down below in the comment section. I try my best to comment on all the videos. If anybody wants to add something, if something I missed or said something wrong, by all means, you can add it down below, politely. Add it down below, and that way people can learn. They can learn the right way. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times cats will try to, they'll be like, oh bro, I got this S472 off of Craigslist or Facebook, I'm about to throw it on my truck, and you got stock fuel, you know, box tuner like a Mini Max or a Bully, some garbage tuner, and then they think they got the kingdom come, and that's not how it works. You're gonna have a sluggish turd engine, and you're gonna be like, this turbo is a piece of junk. No, it's probably not. You probably just didn't know what you were doing and understanding what you were getting into prior to getting that turbo. Okay, so let that be said. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, smash the thumbs up. Thank you for checking out the video. Until next time, take it easy, be safe, peace out, and see y'all next time.